All right, so Amelia and Lauren, thank you so much for joining us again. Welcome to the Broadway Theater for the second time tonight. And we're also joined on stage by Michael Petertson, who was the producer of the film as well. So when I first heard about this movie, John, the festival director, sent me a message and said, we're going to get Amelia Moses, a screener for Amelia Moses' new movie. And I said, yeah. With me, we already watched that. And he's like, no, her new movie. And I said, yeah, with me. And he's no, new movie. So Amelia, you put out 2 movies in 1 year. So you just didn't sleep for 3 or 4 years, or give us the timeline on how that all happened.
Yeah, it's definitely been very surreal to kind of have 2 films coming out at the same time, especially during all this madness and how it's impacted cinemas and film festivals and everything. We actually shot the films a year apart, to the day actually, which was just kind of ironic, but yeah, and then just because of the timing of post-production and everything, they ended up, being released around a similar time and doing the festival circuit at the same time. And it was just kind of a total coincidence that it worked out that way, but it's been weird for sure.
Awesome. Lauren, to quote Vaughn in the movie, you were so fucking good.
Thank you.
And to put that in context, he's talking about your singing. So that's your actual voice in the movie that we're hearing, right?
Yeah. I like have been singing actually longer than I've been acting. So yeah, it was really cool to be able to play a role where I got to do both.
So do you continue to put energy into your music career as well as your acting career then?
Yeah, it's funny because I'm actually at a remote location right now recording EP. So we were just saying before we came out here that it's like kind of meta in a way. I'm sort of doing the method acting thing, but like post movie.
Nice. So we can expect some new music from you this year?
Yeah, definitely. Well, maybe early next year. Okay,
under your name or is it with a group?
My solo name is Elda Luna. So I do have one song on like iTunes or SoundCloud or wherever you listen to music. It's actually in the movie too.
Awesome.
It's in the beginning.
Michael, you mentioned today when you were doing your producer workshop that you received the script and then thought of Amelia to attach to it. Can you walk us through that process a bit?
Sure, yeah. We had a horror film and we were looking for a director. And Amelia and I had talked, I don't know, sometime right around that moment. A mutual friend had connected us. She wanted to ask some questions about distribution or sales for Bleed With Me. So we had met just prior to this and I was like, oh shit, like she's got this film, she's a director, she gets horror. I was like, this could be, the hand of God kind of pulling these pieces together. So I asked her I asked her, I was like, hey, do you want to read the script, Amelia? And I might've been a little bit muddy about why, or maybe I wasn't, I don't totally remember. And then she read it and I was like, what do you think about, maybe you could direct this? And then I talked to the other producer and made a strong case for Amelia. And here we are now. Is that how you remember that, Amelia?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I sent you my work. I sent you my films was the only other timeline thing within that. But yeah, that's how I remember it too.
It was pretty serendipitous, yeah.
For sure. And it was also, I mean, I didn't realize how quick we'd be shooting. That was kind of the key thing for me. I assumed maybe it was still like
next year
in the funding process, that it was like, no, come to Calgary in the next 2 months. Yeah. So
Michael, in your workshop, you also alluded to maybe it was the first cut that you saw was quite different, maybe pacing wise or story wise from the final that we saw. Are you comfortable talking about what changes needed to be made or were made there? You too, Amelia?
Well, the point of all of it is always to make sure that it's the director's movie. It's got to be the director's movie. It doesn't mean that the director can't take my input, or they can also disagree with my input. On this one, we had 3 strong voices, and they weren't always agreeing on the direction. So there was a moment in the process, which is something that I tried to do with all my movies, where we got to a place where we were fairly secure in the structure of the story. And then we passed it along to an outside editor to just kind of go to town on it. They rearranged a couple of things. Those things, I wasn't sure how they were going to be taken by Amelia and the other producer. Fortunately, they were taken, they were received well. And I also agreed with that. So it's more about the process, but more importantly, making sure that the director is on board with it, because ultimately I want it to be the director's movie, because if I'm sitting in their shoes, I don't want some jackass producer trying to, run roughshod over me or taking it over, because it's really not cool.
Amelia, so you were okay with the changes that were made then?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I think when you get to a certain point in post where you're kind of exhausted and you kind of lose all objectivity, and also like you were on set too, right? You were there on the day and you've been part of every part of the process. So I think Mike's idea to kind of bring in not only like another person to kind of watch it, but also to kind of just try things was such a cool experience. I hadn't done that on another film before. And you just end up kind of with stuff you would have never thought of yourself. And so I remember that being like a really good turning point for kind of working towards the final cut.
It's something that I think should just be part of the process. It isn't typically part of the process, but I think it should just be one of the steps. And it's something that I've, like, going back 3 films, maybe now, it's something that it's like we always need to do this because it's so valuable.
Awesome. Any questions from the crowd? Yes, sir.
Kudos for Wendy and Lowell writing the script and helping the production and everything. But what I'm curious is like Lowell, I don't know if I'm butchering her name at all, but she wrote the script and she put her own music in it. And I thought that was super, super cool. And what I want to ask is that how much was she there to convey what she wanted her music to be represented in the movie? Or was she there at all? Or was it like she sent you like the final tracks of like what she wrote, and then you guys just like, all right, so we're gonna take our own version of it while we're filming the movie? Like, especially with you, Lauren, like, was you there to like kind of teach you what you want to do, or you just like heard it and you're like, okay, this is kind of my take, I'm gonna do it kind of thing?
Sorry, go ahead, Amelia.
I was going to say Lauren should go ahead.
Lauren, go ahead.
Sure, I'll go ahead. Yeah, so when I found out that I got the part, luckily Lowell, like she travels a lot. She works with a lot of really awesome musicians in Toronto and in Los Angeles. So she's back and forth a lot. And luckily she was in Toronto at that time. So I was actually able to go see her a couple nights. I think I only had really a week before I had to leave to shoot this, but I was able to actually go to her apartment for a few nights. I also had to learn piano in that week. So I was lucky enough that she was there. So I went to her apartment. She taught me piano at the same time that she was really kind of going over some of the songs with me, just as much as we could. And kind of talking to me about, the emotion behind it. We didn't really delve too deep into it, to be honest. There wasn't much time. But I think the songs themselves are so well written that, I mean, even when I was auditioning for this, as soon as I heard the songs, I really just already could visualize the film and how it kind of should be played. But she was on set for, was it 1 day, 2 days?
1 day.
1 day, yeah. She was able to.
I don't think we were doing any songs that day either.
Yeah, and it wasn't even a music day, but she got to be on set and sort of see how it was going. And I think Wendy was also sending her back and forth kind of clips of the takes that we had done with the songs. Because I know there was, at one point I was getting one of the words wrong in Bloodthirsty, and she had to correct me. So I didn't keep doing it. But yeah, it was even though
I thought your version was better, Lauren.
Yeah, there was something, I can't remember what it was, but it like still made sense. Anyway, but yeah, so she still was able to sort of like have her say or have an influence a little bit, even from like Los Angeles.
And
But
kind
yeah,
of in the post-production as well, when we were kind of like finalizing the songs and stuff, obviously we recorded it all on set for the most part, but there was a few things we re-recorded in post, still with Lauren's voice and everything. And Lowell was there for that session to kind of finesse a few things here and there. But
yeah, that was really great to do that with her too. Because I think that was for mostly the final time that I sang Bloodthirsty at the piano. So she was able to kind of coach me through that. I think she actually is a vocal coach too. So I think we got even more emotion than we would have gotten on the day, maybe.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Yeah, first of all, I love both of the films. I think you guys obviously seem to mesh really well together, and it's really exciting to know that we have in the next few years or in the future we're going to get more out of your voices because these both these movies seem to be unique and exciting in a way that I haven't seen before. And what I mean by that is that, Amelia, you were talking about Bleed With Me before, about how it was kind of like a little rip on a vampire take. And then you have Bloodthirsty, where it's like it's a werewolf film, but you seem to have made like a domesticated monster subgenre. It seems really human. And I guess I was curious with two of these films coming out in the same year, is this something, are you a fan of monster films? And if so, is there another type of monster that you'd like to domesticate?
yeah, I mean, honestly, I really didn't think about it until I think I read something that was like, she should do Frankenstein next. And I was like, I should do that. Yeah, I mean, I think that definitely in Bloodthirsty, the idea of kind of like, you know, this a creature and transformation, all that stuff, I I was really drawn to that, and kind of like the body horror element too. And I guess they both kind of, I like monster movies in general, but then also when they can kind of be an extension of like real human feelings and a kind of visual manifestation of like inner struggle. So I think that kind of both the films kind of fall into that a little bit. I also think like, you know, less so werewolves, but definitely with vampires. It's like, there's a lot of fucking vampire movies out there. There's definitely less werewolf movies, but like, I think if you're going to work with or do something different, that might not appeal to everyone because people also like when things, you know, check certain boxes. But I think if you're going to do something, it's like, okay, how can we do it differently then? How can we look at this differently? And subvert things, because otherwise you're just making the same thing again, you know? So I guess that would be kind of how I approach it. In terms of, I mean, I'm developing a script right now with someone else that's a tentacle monster, so it's still a monster.
Yeah,
But
To continue on that line of thought, I really liked the design of the werewolf. It was definitely a werewolf, but it wasn't like, you know, hair coming out of everything, ripping the clothes off, hairy arms, hairy back. So can you tell us a bit about the, you know, you just said, does that play into the kind of the design, what you were looking for in the werewolf itself?
Well, I think when I came on board, both Mike and Wendy, the writer and co-producer, had talked about doing kind of a more stripped down werewolf. I think partially, in all honesty, for budget reasons as well. But to me, like budget is, it gives you the creative limitations, or it gives you limitations to be creative essentially. So it's not necessarily a bad thing, but like, you know, doing something more just prosthetics on the actor's face rather than kind of like person in a, you know, hairy suit, because A, that can just look bad, and B, we want to do something different. So those kind of ideas were already in place when I came on board, but I thought that they were like an interesting choice. And And then definitely, I think one thing that struck me while shooting the transformation scene, because that was probably like our third day of shooting, was the fact that we could still kind of see Lauren's face and expressions. And so like, even in the kind of like monster makeup, creature makeup, like we're still able to like see her as an actor and as a human. And I thought that that was kind of interesting because it's still like, there's still kind of this human aspect of her, which is, you know, true to the film and true to the character and stuff. And there's still kind of an emotional aspect rather than just being like, okay, we're full monster now and we've lost any kind of like human aspect to it. So I think that, you know, I think that it worked out.
Yeah, I think there's a cool thing there too of like seeing the two exist at the same time. You know, it's like you know, it's like everyone has that kind of like dark side to them, and it exists within you all the time, but to like kind of see them both at the same time, there's something cool about that. Yeah. It was also very awesome for me to have the actual practical effects on me, because, and I've said this several times, but there's something like, I think it selfishly really helped me as an actor, because I could just look at my reflection in my phone or like go to the bathroom and look in the mirror and be like, blah, okay, that's what I look like, all right, and just like keep that image in my head, whereas it might have been a bit more difficult if I had just like nothing physical to work with and it was all done in post. So I think it's selfishly better as an actor as well.
Well, that's a really interesting point. Yeah, that's a good point. Michael, to turn over to you, tell us a bit about the location, because I believe it was shot in northern Alberta,
Edmonton.
In Edmonton. So was it multiple houses? Were you dealing with a different room for a different house for every room, or how did all that work together?
It was a lot of conversations and looking at locations. We were originally going to film it in Calgary. In Calgary, there's the largest bungalow in the world, I think. And it's like,
Of course there is.
I don't know, 12,000 or 15,000 square feet or something like that. It's a crazy cool place. It looks like like an 18th century German mansion or something without a second story. Anyway, it's a really remarkable place that has its own special charm. But then we got some funding available in Edmonton, so we talked about looking at Edmonton as well. We looked at a lot of places, everything from kind of modern, white walls, kind of very open concept type houses, to the place that we ended up shooting at. So this, I mean, that's that guy's house. Like, the stuff you see in the background is largely this stuff that's in the house.
I was going to ask about that, because a lot of the fixtures and the pieces on the dresser and stuff, they're so lavish that seem to fit location, right? And I wondered if they were just there when you got there.
Yeah, a lot of them were. So it was very eclectic. Even the junkyard behind the house is actually the junkyard behind the house.
Oh, really?
It was a shooting location. It to me is like a really rich place with a lot of possibilities. Yeah. It also saved a bunch of time on building kind of the production design, the density in the background, which takes forever to build, but is really important in terms of building that texture of image behind the stuff that actually matters, which is the actors. So I remember correctly, Amelia liked most of it, but I think she didn't like one or two elements of it. So I really tried to make a strong case on why this was a really good place to film. Not because it was easier or whatever, but I actually really believe this, because this is something that you don't find every day. It's just such a weird fucking house. And the guy is like he's a bit of a character as well. He was totally open to us using it and kind of using his stuff. And then the production design team can spend time doing other things rather than building, essentially meaningless density behind people in shots of back on walls and bookshelves. And then I don't remember what the conversations were, but but Amelia was able to see the couple of the things that I think she wasn't seeing at that time, which might have also been, influenced by the weird, huge bungalow that we looked at, because it was such a cool, distinctive, interesting location. So once she was able to kind of rework however she works on that stuff and figure it out, it worked out really well, I think.
Amelia, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really, really, really glad we found that house, because there wasn't it just needed to be a really kind of eccentric, interesting place, because it's an extension of Vaughn's character, and we spend the whole film there too and stuff. Obviously the recording studio was a different location. Some of the bedrooms were a different location. But the core stuff was all in that house. And yeah, kind of like what Mike was saying, like there was so much to work with there. And when you have a limited budget too, like it's really nice when you're just like, for the production designer, like, oh, there's a bunch of stuff here to work with. So we can kind of like curate the space. Like that, the guy who owned that house had a lot of stuff, like a lot of stuff. And so it was more kind of,
Let's put it out there.
a hoarder of very beautiful things, very interesting things. So it was a matter of kind of taking stuff away, and curating it. And then, it's when you find a place like that, you kind of also have to change the script a bit to fit the location and like try to use the best parts of the location. So a bunch of the scenes that are set in the junkyard in the script were just in the forest. And we spent so long just kind of wandering around the property trying to find the little patch of forest we could shoot in, trying to be like, will this work? Will this work? And then I was just like, well, we have this amazing junkyard. Like we've all seen forest before, but that place was very unique. So I don't know why it took me so long to click into just utilizing the junkyard, but I'm really glad we did, because it's much more, unique of a space and something you wouldn't see anywhere else. So we really lucked out on that place for sure.
Awesome. And you like working in the winter, so the snow covered all the junk and made it look beautiful anyways.
I don't like working in the winter. Not this year.
Over it.
Yeah, 2 years is enough for me.
Yeah.
Question at the back.
So who picked out Vaughn's coat? Because I love that coat he had. Because I'm like, that has to be from Howling or something. It just fits so well.
Now it's his coat.
That was Greg Brick. He chose it. As soon as he put it on, he's like, I think I met Greg that day, so I didn't know him that well.
Was he wearing
that? No. He didn't bring the coat with him. We were doing like a wardrobe fitting. He put it on and he's like, Amelia, I'm wearing this. And I was like, okay. Can't say no to you. But I think, it's a choice.
Lauren, I was reading an interview and you had mentioned that in the interview that you gravitate towards roles that represent the queer community. So this seemed like a pretty perfect role for you with your voice and your commitment to the representation. I think that we're making a change. Are you seeing more roles, representing that community?
I mean, slowly but surely, yes. I mean, I still think there's a lot of work to be done. I think I specifically love this film because the queerness of it, the relationship between Gray and Charlie, isn't like the center point of the entire plot. It's just they're a gay couple and they're just a couple, and it's like any other movie, and it's like a werewolf movie. So that was really interesting to me, and obviously, like, as a proud member of the community, I want to represent my community, and I also want to normalize queer relationships. So, I think more of that needs to happen, but we're slowly getting there. I have seen, more breakdowns and more auditions in the last year or so for queer characters than I've ever seen. So we're getting there, but honestly, like, I've peaked, John. I got to play a queer pop star werewolf. I don't think it gets much better than that.
Lauren, to follow up on that, as a movie-going audience, what can we do to help that support and help that representation?
I mean, support queer art, support queer films, go see it, buy tickets to go see it, tell your friends about it. Yeah, just support, support, support.
Great. Question from the audience?
This is a question for whoever wants to answer, but if, like, so Vaughn Daniels was in a 90s boy band. Which band was he in?
I think I had to come up with the name of it because we needed some text in an article.
Oh, yeah.
And I Googled like boy band name generator. And I can't remember what it was. You don't see it. Like, even if you like freeze framed, you might not see it, but I was just trying to get enough content for this fake article. I can't remember what it was, but yeah, it came from a Google generator.
I hope it was called like the Howlers or something.
That would have been good. I should have texted you.
I was gonna ask for, I don't know which movie came out first, but like when you went to audition for Bloodthirsty, like I guess for Amelia, did you knew that Lauren was gonna be there again, or was it like she showed up set, you're like, oh, you again? Did we just made a movie last?
No, I cast her. I was part of the casting process. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I had worked with Lauren on Bleed With Me first, and we hadn't really worked together apart from just doing a little kind of teaser thing when we did Bleed With Me, but we just got along, and she's just really awesome. So, and so also because I knew she could sing, and you know, that was obviously something we wanted the actor who played Gray to also be able to sing. And not have to kind of dub it later or anything like that. So Lauren just seemed like a good fit. And I think initially I was worried because there was, you know, more action in this film compared to the other one. And Lauren had an injury, which why she has a limp and Bleed With Me. So I wasn't sure kind of how far along in the recovery process she was. And so at first I just didn't know like if that would cause any issues because I didn't want that to be, you know, a struggle for her, but she was, you know, I mean, you were kind of fine at that point, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Still sort of see my limp when I'm running, and it really bugs me.
It's funny, I noticed that too, but I thought maybe it's just in my own head because of,
You know,
with me being such an
I
intense
think
experience,
it's a
being
little bit-
conscientious of that.
I think it's a little bit noticeable still, but
So a question for both Amelia and Lauren. We're going to expect 2 movies from both of you next year again, because that's the standard that you've set. So can you give us some insight into new projects?
Yeah, I mean, I'm working on a project, like I mentioned before, with Lee Marshall, who was on the last Q&A, who plays Rowan in Bleed With Me. He's also one of the producers. And we're working with a writer who has a script that we're helping her develop. Laura D. Girolamo, who's from Toronto, she runs the Bloody Mary Film Festival, which is a really cool, like, women-focused Canadian horror film festival. I don't know if they're doing a festival this year because of COVID or they've pushed it. But yeah, so she's just, you know, and she's also a film critic and stuff, and it's her first feature script, I think. So we're kind of developing that with her and seeing where that can go.
And Lauren?
yeah, well, obviously working on my music project. Keep you posted on when that comes out. If I don't turn into a werewolf first. Then I'm working on a short film with a good friend of mine that we wrote together. It's going to be interesting. We're kind of rehearsing it like a play, and we're just going to shoot it in a room, a lot of improv, and just have the camera follow us around. So I'm excited for that. And then I'm also working on developing a mockumentary about a Canadian band that gets pulled out of Woodstock by the government because they think it's like a trap for drug users. And they fake a Woodstock in Woodstock, New Brunswick. So that'll be fun.
I'm sold.
Good.
Michael, we know you've got a busy year ahead. Let everybody know what you've got on your plate.
Yeah, I've got, should be 5 features coming up this year. all heavy genre stuff, everything from a descent like indigenous story to cannibals to exorcism movies. So,
Sounds like we've got
All
the,
areas covered.
between the three of you, we've got next year's festival programmed already now.
we have Canada's genre circuit covered.
All right, well, again, I just want to really thank Lauren and Amelia for your time. We know there's a time change in Toronto, but Amelia, it looks like you're working, you've got work going on behind you anyways, so you're going to be up.
My boyfriend's working on something. I don't know what he's doing. He's
But we-
composing music for the next film.
We really appreciate you taking the time and speaking with us and hanging out with us, and we're very much looking forward to the new projects. We're going to keep an eye out for those. Hopefully, when the world gets semi back to normal, we'll show some movies, and we'll have Lauren's band up here on the stage, and we'll get to meet each other in person. So again,
Sounds amazing.
Michael, too, appreciate you traveling during these times to come out and hang out with us and do the workshop today and answer our questions tonight. So thank
my
you to
pleasure.
everybody. Yeah.